Manny Diaz, thank you for joining me on the ITA College Tennis Coaches podcast.
My pleasure, David.
Yeah, I
Good to
figured I
good to be
needed
with you.
I needed to hunt you down before you left the college tennis world, and so I
Uh,
appreciate you in the middle of the season joining me here so we can capture some of your wisdom and share it with our coaches.
Glad to do it.
All right, so I'm interested, Manny, just you've had such a long, successful career, but how has the role of the head coach maybe evolved through the years, through the decades? Is the job very different from what you were doing 30 plus years ago, or the core of it's still very much the same?
It's a good question. I think the role of the head coach, my position is that it hasn't changed that much. What has changed a lot is just the added responsibilities, the added uh, paperwork. Like honestly, I think the paperwork now, the extra meetings. I don't think I had a staff meeting in my first 10 or 15 years as a head coach. I had one meeting a year with my athletic director at the end of the year. We evaluated things. We talked about next year, and that was pretty much it. What I find now is that you got a lot more meetings, you got a lot more people uh, from different areas of your athletic department. We have just a whole lot more, I guess, pit stops along the way, and a lot of things that athletic directors and the administration, has to be responsible for,
Mhm.
whether it's compliance, whether it's DEI, whether it's sexual harassment, uh, lectures and this and that. There's a whole lot more of that than there used to be, and so it becomes a little bit harder to manage all those things. But before, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it was player development, it was recruiting, and it was dealing with your team. And I felt like, for me over here, I was somewhat on my own little island, and I didn't mind that at all.
Mhm.
But athletic departments have become so much bigger, and so
Yeah.
with that comes a lot more responsibilities and how to tie people together, making sure that we're all as an athletic association working together towards the same vision from the athletic director. So understandably so, it's a little bit more of a complex situation now than it used to be 35, 40 years ago when I started.
Yeah. So as the athletic department staff has grown, and that's the thing, right? As you've maybe the staffs have grown, both your own director of ops, a second assistant coach now, strength and conditioning coaches, nutritionists, etc., at the highest level
Uh,
of Division One, but also I guess the responsibilities, the pressure, etc., has maybe increased as those resources have gone up. But how have you figured out what to prioritize? Like, how do you think about delegation? And a lot of our coaches, obviously, we have so many coaches that are coaching, 20 plus players, both genders by themselves, etc. They don't have the luxury of even delegating. But we also have a lot of coaches that do and have assistant coaches and are trying to figure out how to delegate. How have you figured out what is your main priority as a head coach? What do you need to focus on day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year, and what can you delegate to other members of the your own staff and then the athletic department staff as a whole?
That's a great question. So I think that my main role has not changed. For a head coach, I believe that the biggest, most important responsibility is to set a vision for our program,
Hmm.
to set the boundaries and instill a culture, and devise a system where you have everyone buy in to those goals, team oriented goals. Even though we also do individual goals for each one of our team members, but I'm not the best delegator, so I would say that for the first 35 years or so, I was pretty much, I had my hand on just about everything.
Hmm.
But here in the last few years, I have started preparing Jamie Hunt for for the next step for him. And so part of my responsibility was kind of including him and, and budgeting, for example, and promotions and, our meetings at the administrative level. And so that the last couple of years, has taken a little bit more of a leadership role, obviously, and recruiting and just making sure that I think one of my goals is to make sure that Jamie was prepared and knew all facets of the job. So, but as far as the head coach, I think it is important that we focused, on again setting a vision for the team and devising a plan of action. We usually, during the season, including the fall season, we set aside, we do a planning for short term. We take and we break it apart for the next 2 to 3 weeks and decide what we want to accomplish during that time. And then, you also have your long-term goals and things of that sort that you're aiming towards. You're trying to get your team closer to those, final goals. But player development has always been number one for me. If we can get our players to trust us, and follow, our plan, right? And our plan involves them. Different people. We've had plenty of players that want to be tennis pro, but we have some people that just want to be, a great part of our college program, and they want to, make the lineup. They want to be an All-America. They want to be a great college player, and eventually, they want to play pro, but they're not maybe as committed to being that, all John Isner type, Michael
Hmm.
Pernfors type of player. They're getting a good education. They may want to go to law school. They may have other goals that we have to, balance, and that's important. We've had plenty of great college tennis players here at Georgia that are now doctors or they're in finance. They are very successful. So the lessons that they learn along the way, through sport, through being here at the University of Georgia and a part of our program, I think serve them well. And that's a big goal of mine as well.
Yeah. And Manny, just with that kind of evolution as a head coach, as you age, I mean, I know when I started my coaching career, I was in the gym with the players every day. I'm doing the sprints, I'm doing a million individuals.
Yeah.
And then, towards the end of my career, I'm standing in the corner more and not
I know
moving
the
as much as
feeling.
I once did. But how has that evolved for you? Obviously, you were a great player yourself. I'd imagine you were very physical with your player development early on, but as you have got older, and I know a lot of coaches my age now are starting to struggle with that a little bit. How have you uh, maintained your relevance, or how you've coached, or have you thought about coaching differently as the years have gone by?
No doubt. I mean, I used to play my freshman in sets
Right.
early on. Yeah. And, I used to do a lot of the same things, get in the gym with them and all of these other things. And, uh, but I would go on to say that even as you age, I think the biggest thing is that the kids see your passion. Like my passion has not diminished. My ability to smack balls with them has.
Hmm.
So, I can now, coach two guys for an individual where they're actually doing more of the hitting with themselves. You have to be flexible. You have to be creative. But the biggest thing, if you're passionate and you don't get sedentary in that regard, I think that your production doesn't have to suffer one bit. So that's
Hmm.
how I've dealt with it. I think the guys, when they get on the court, whether it's our team practice or individual workouts, they still see that passion. I can still get very loud. I can, at the same time, I can still joke a little bit with her. I've stayed young in that regards. I think that was very important as far as relevance and being able to relate to these kids. You also have to take in consideration, kids are a little bit different now than they were 35, 40 years ago.
Hmm.
So you have to coach them a little bit more at their level. You have to find out where everybody is, and what buttons to push on everybody. But that's something I feel like I've done well when I was a young coach, and I think I've learned from that. Not everybody uh, can relate to one way of coaching.
Hmm.
So I adjust my coaching style a little bit. Not necessarily my principles, not necessarily my methods, but how to reach each individual player is our goal, right?
Hmm.
So it's important for you as a coach to be able to know which buttons need to be pressed on each individual player. Because if I get in one player's face and I'm very passionate and loud and somewhat aggressive, I think that motivates and inspires some of our players. But
Hmm.
if I do that with some other players, they may become a little bit overwhelmed. They may become a little bit nervous. So I talk to my players, at their level rather than at mine.
Hmm. Well, you still look very fit, like you could go out and smack a few balls, but no, I understand. And kind of building upon that a little bit, Manny, with recruits, say, not so much relating to your own players, but this is again something I hear from a lot of coaches my age and older who are now getting further and further removed from their college days and maybe not able to relate as well to that 16, 17, 18-year-old going through the recruiting process. And so how have you managed that as your career has extended? And like you said, maybe the players, maybe the parents have changed a little bit as well. Have you evolved how you're approaching that process? Sitting down, speaking with recruits, really getting under the hood, trying to understand them, their parents, their motivations, and relating them in a way where they're like, oh yeah, I want to go play for this guy. Like he's like you said,
Mm.
you talked about passion, that's very clear. But are there other things that you're doing to demonstrate that, hey, come to my call. I'm going to work as hard as I did today as I did 36 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
There's no difference. I'm the same coach and better because of those years.
Yeah, to be honest with you, up until the last couple of years when I think maybe uh, the word, starts to become like, hey, this guy's already been there for 42 years. How much longer is he going to be there? Is he going to be there, when my kid goes, like is on his junior year, senior year?
Right.
Is he going to be there for the duration? That became a little bit of an
Mm,
issue that we had to respond to. Um, but, with somebody at my side like Jamie Hunt, we sold, there's going to be continuity whenever that moment comes. But just to get back to your initial question, I don't see parents that much wanting things much different today than
hmm.
35, 40 years ago. They want to know that their child is going to be well taken care of. They're going to be treated respectfully. They're going to be able to trust you to be their interim father, if
Mm,
you may say. Like somebody's got to have my kid's back. Is he going to be okay? Is he going to be looked after? If he needs help, are you going to be there? I think that's what parents are looking for now. I think that's what parents looked for 40 years ago. But again, for many of these kids with high aspirations, they want to know that, their kid is going to be able to continue that developmental process that they so much, or the kid has expressed that so much that he wants to,
mm,
reach for. And so, we have to show them how we're going to help them get what they want, whether it's a great education, a great college experience, the ability to get a great degree, or whether it is like, being able to play futures now, that became a thing 15, years ago or whatever it was, that became part of the recruitment process. Are you going to be able to take them to futures and challengers? Are you going to be able to give them the exposure so he can continue to develop? And so you have to balance all those things in the recruitment process. But I don't think parents are looking for a whole lot of different stuff
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to recruiting now.
Makes sense. And so, Manny, you played for Coach Dan McGill. You were assistant coach, and then obviously took over the reins after a few years as assistant coach. And for our listeners who may not be familiar with the legend of Dan McGill, I encourage them to go and on Google and learn about some of his background and all of his accomplishments. It's mind blowing what that man did. But were there some lessons that you learned from Coach McGill that have really stuck with you throughout your entire career?
Oh, the value of discipline, the value of being on time, the value uh, of humor, believe it or not, in coaching. I think that's been something that I have emulated and tried to continue. I think uh, we won 4 SEC championships when I was a player, and honestly, I'm not convinced that we were the best team each and every year. And as I tried to assess, what made him so good and why we had the success that we had. The one thing that I always kept coming back to is that we played harder for him than other teams played
Mm,
for their coach and their university. He was able to create this vision of like he loved the University of Georgia. He was passionate about what we were doing each and every day, and those things are essential to anyone's success. So, learn discipline, learn just to have a love for what you do, and I consider myself very lucky. I don't feel like I've had a job for the last 42 years.
mhm.
My wife and I'm blessed to have a wife that really has been just incredibly supportive. It's been a way of life. It's been a ride that we embarked upon, and when you're working 70, 80 hours a week, if you're looking at the clock, it ain't going to work, right? So you have to be passionate about this. You have to love what you're doing. And if you do, you're going to be okay.
And Manny, just your comment about Coach McGill and your teams playing harder for him than maybe other players for their coaches. What was that exactly? It was just the connection he had with each of you, or
Yeah.
can you delve into that a little bit more?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think everyone, loved Coach McGill, all of us that played for him. And I think that that became one of my goals is to, make sure that these kids enjoyed, had the best experience at the University of Georgia as part of our team. That they actually, we had there's a saying that I heard a million years ago. I don't know who said it, but they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so just being there for these guys, yes, these guys are going to have a girlfriend. The girlfriend's going to dump them. They're going to be down in the dumps. It's those moments outside the tennis court where you take an interest in their personal lives that really build a sense of trust. And without trust, I don't think you can you can succeed at the highest level. So it's not just trust me on the tennis court, but just trust that I have your best interest, and I'm going to do everything within my power, whether it's, you choosing a good schedule for your classes to you getting the individual attention that you need, that whether we help you achieve your individual goals in life and we prepare you for what's coming after college. I think that for the most part, we have a group, that has played for me in the last 36 years that can say, you had my back. You really taught me about life, and even if it's a small part that you feel like you've helped them with achieve success, after college,
Mhm.
then you've done a great job.
Yeah, yeah. And Manny, with again, over such a long career, and it's all relative, right? I mean, a bad year for you might be making the round of 16 at the NCAA championship. Obviously your goals every year to win a national championship, but obviously there's been ups and downs throughout your career, like anybody's going to have. On the outset, it all looks rosy, like, oh, they won another SEC
Mm.
title, everything's got to be perfect. But even in those good years, I'm sure there were some challenges, and we're in the middle of the season right now. We have coaches that are dealing with a whole host of things. It could be results not going their way, but it could also be issues with a particular player. It could be dealing with a bunch of injuries. It could be a whole host of things. But how would you encourage coaches when they're at their lowest point and really struggling and maybe even questioning their future in this? Is this really something I want to do? How did you manage those tough times? What were your, what did you come back to? What kind of kept you going, inspired, passionate? Is there any advice you can share with those coaches that are struggling right now and maybe questioning their future in this industry?
Wow. You know, I think a big part of being successful is being brutally honest and being able to self-evaluate.
Hmm.
Um, and for me, that comes almost on a daily basis. To be able to kind of think on the go is very important. But at the end of each and every year, I really always sat down and made a long list. Spent about a week just going over what I could have done better uh, this past year. And so each and every year, be able to evaluate what you could do better. And, you find that I didn't do quite as much of this as I did a couple of years ago. I kind of just let this kind of slip. It could be a training module. It could be certain drills. It could be the way, your attitude may be slipped because of this or that. Where you lost a little bit of trust with maybe one or two players, where your communication with one or two players wasn't as good as it could have been, where I could have done a little bit better. And then it's important throughout the year to be able to go back and maybe just make sure that you're keeping yourself honest and you're keeping yourself committed to the things that you decided you were going to do in this current year. So I keep touching on a whole lot of these points and issues almost on a daily basis. I got notes everywhere that keeps me, grounded and keeps me focused on the things that I think, make a big difference for me at the time.
Hmm.
But I don't care what job you have. There's no job where you just keep, just ascending, right? There's always deals you lose. There's always recruits you don't get. There's always losses that you don't expect. And, I read a book, I don't know, about 20, 25 years, that was very useful. Pat Riley's The Winner Within, where it basically, a few years back, we had a big deal. Some of our players had an issue with my assistant coach, and we had a big to do about that. And I had to make sure I was able to handle that in the most an opportune time. So we all have these uh, these issues that will surface and that will make you question, hey, do I cut this corner or do I keep committed to what I'm about and what I set out to do? And so, it's important at the end to make sure that you are true to what you're trying to do, because not only for your sake, but your student athletes will see through you if you're not real. If you're not, you're telling them to hustle, but you're sitting on the chair and you're just on your iPhone. And at times we all have to, respond to your AD that's texting you. Okay, I get all that stuff, and we have to handle a whole lot of stuff other than on court. But you have to be passionate if you want them to be passionate. You have to be disciplined if you want them to be disciplined. You have to be on time if you want them to be on time. And if you're not, then you're creating trouble for yourself.
Mm-hmm. And Manny, and that's great. Thank you for sharing that. And when you go through that self-evaluation process, do you seek feedback from student athletes or former student athletes and any coach or staff around you, or is it's just really you being brutally honest, like you said, with yourself?
Well, at the end of the season, when I'm maybe taking a week off or getting some time off, that's when I kind of just, in a very quiet setting, just go through a process of self-evaluation. But throughout the year, we have several modules where we actually do get some feedback from the players.
Okay.
We do. What would you like us to do a little bit better? What are we doing well in coaching you? What are some of the things that you would ask us to do more of?
Mm.
And for one athlete, it may be one thing, and so for another athlete, it may be something else. But it's important to do get feedback from your athletes as well as your coworkers and my assistant coach, it's very important to go along with what you think you need to work on, because we all have blind spots.
Yeah, absolutely. And Manny, you touched upon you mentioned your wife a little bit, and again, this is
Mhm.
something that um, I speak a lot with coaches about, and kind of their challenges, their struggles with having a young family and balancing, as you talked about, the 60, 70 hour, 80-hour weeks during the season,
Mhm.
especially. You're traveling a lot. Um, Again, any advice for those coaches that are really in the thick of it? Your kids are obviously a lot older now, but if you can cast yourself back to when they were very young, and managing all the demands of the job, caring for your players, like you said, you want to get to know them and be very invested in their lives, all the travel, the recruiting, etc. Is there any advice you could give to those coaches? And as you reflect upon that, is there anything you wish you'd done differently during that time period, or you're very happy with how you managed all of it?
It's never perfect. You know, the first thing is you're going to need some flexibility. Like in our family, um, we celebrated birthdays 1 or 2 days before, 1 or 2 days after. Sometimes, we
Right.
had to be flexible. I was out of town. Like I just went out of town this past weekend. It was my birthday on Saturday. I left Thursday for a Sunday match.
Mhm.
Um, sorry, Friday. My wife, she'll have her birthday, the last regular season home match on Sunday, the 31st.
Mhm.
We'll figure a way to celebrate things, and everything doesn't have to fall in its actual day. So we had to learn very fast to be flexible. I personally did not I chose not to play golf. I chose not to go out drinking with my buddies. Like if I wasn't at home or at practice or at matches, I was at home with my kids when they were growing up. I was meeting them along with my wife. I was meeting them at the little league baseball field, and that I wanted to have as much of a presence as possible, because I knew that, hey, I may be out of town this coming weekend or two. So that is definitely a challenge, but just having your priorities straight, making sure that, hey, at night, if I'm at home, I'm helping put the kids to bed, and that is a special time. So,
Mm.
it's just like everything else, it's just a matter of priorities, and I think that with a little flexibility, I think you can be fine.
Okay, great. And just kind of a quick question. Is there a memory that really sticks out to you, whether it's with your team or community, that you'll always remember very fondly? You've had such a long and successful career, as we talked about, but is there something, an image, a day, a situation, a conversation with somebody that will always stick with you, regardless of how many years go by? Is there something that really jumps out to you?
I'll be honest, there's many, so many.
Yeah.
Meeting Dan McGill, I actually was bold enough and crazy enough, and I didn't know the process of recruiting very well. Coach McGill was writing me letters. There was no email back then.
Sure.
He was writing me letters every 1 or 2 weeks, and he certainly showed his interest, and I showed my interest. I didn't know much about the process, so my father and I decided to come to the United States from Puerto Rico, where I was, growing up,
Hmm.
and we decided to visit UNC, Wake Forest, University of Georgia, and Mississippi State. And because my tennis coach, other than Welby Van Horn, Tony Ortiz, had come to he actually went to Baylor High School in Chattanooga, and from there he got a scholarship at the University of Georgia. He won Kalamazoo in doubles. He was a very good player, and he went back to Puerto Rico after 1 year, and became my coach. And so he started talking to me about University of Georgia and how he wished he was still there. He had applied himself in the schoolwork, and he hadn't partied too much like he did, and basically had to leave. And so he started writing Coach McGill for me, and we established contact. Anyway, we showed up in Athens, Georgia, and Coach McGill didn't even know we were coming. So it just happened to be one afternoon when it was a tennis match going on. So I walk into the facility, and my dad asked, "Where's Dan McGill?" So Coach McGill, that first initial, he showed up like he had a cup, a small Coke cup, paper cup with ice, and he was crunching ice with some Madras looking pants and some polka dot polo of some sort. He dressed very colorful. And he was just that first impression was like he had a Madras hat on, his houndstooth hat, like Bear Bryant wore, kind of thing.
Hmm.
It was a different looking character, but his honesty and his charm really won us over. And
Yeah.
by the end of the visit, he offered us a full scholarship, and we canceled our other visits and went back home.
Wow.
Um, that's one, but the other
Yeah.
one, I guess, I mean, there's so many. My first championship as a head coach, 1999. Thank God it was before social media. So our celebration downtown with my team would probably get me fired today, but it's one of the, and that's a shame, to be honest with you. Um, uh, it was one of the most fun things I can remember doing with my team. Right, we were on top of tables, and there was like 300 people in that bar, and it was a special moment with a group of guys that had gone through a war and came out victorious, and so we were able to celebrate my first national
Yeah.
championship as a head coach.
Very cool. And do you ever think, Manny, if you hadn't had that meeting with Coach McGill, where you might be right now? Do you think you'd be college coaching? You'd be a college coach?
I don't know.
No.
I
Yeah.
had no idea what would have happened if I had gone somewhere else.
All right.
Life has its ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're glad it worked out the way that it did.
Yeah.
And so with everything going on in the world of college sports right now, I mean, again, we talked earlier about your start of your career and some of the changes as a head coach, but you've also seen just the landscape of college athletics, especially in recent years, just change overnight, basically. I mean, the amount of change is just it's hard to comprehend, and it is something we talk a lot on this podcast. But are you getting a sense, whether it's speaking with your athletic department staff, AD, SEC officials, do you have any sense of how this might play out in the years to come? Or if you I don't think anybody
Yeah.
knows, but what are you projecting or maybe hoping, when we get through this time of turbulence, how do you hope this ends up in the years to come? And then what are the potential positives or benefits for college tennis specifically as this world shifts? That's a difficult question, I know, but would love to get any
Yeah.
input or thoughts you have on it.
Yeah, I mean, well, nobody knows where this. It's like this big roulette is spinning, and we don't
Right.
know where it's going to stop. Right? I do believe incredible changes are coming in the next 12 to 24 months. I think that we're going to, we might be headed towards, the fact that athletes are going to be employees. Where tennis fits along this uh, new model is what I think it's okay to worry a little bit and wonder where this is going to take us as a non-revenue sport. Um, so I think the biggest and most important thing is continue to just connect with your communities wherever you are. Try to create some relationships with the people in your areas, your student body, your alumni, your communities, and continue to provide services and a connection to your athletes. I think that's now more important than ever. Um, some Power Five conference might be okay, but I wouldn't rule out us going back to a little bit more of a regional play in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
There's, from my understanding, there's, the new model that's going to come out of these two court cases that are pending, are going to significantly affect uh, uh, every athletic department.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that from my take and talking to our administrators, I mean that's going to be a responsibility of $20 to $50 million per athletic department that they're going to have to come up with to
Wow.
fund these two lawsuits that I don't think there's any way of winning, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole lot of issues that need to be solved to really find out exactly what the landscape is going to look like. Right now, it's just very volatile,
Yeah.
and who knows what's going to happen. But I think that if you as a coach can make a difference for your program, I think it is going to be how are you connecting? How are you reaching out to your communities? How are you involving your local tennis and pickleball and fans? Are you getting more than 10 or 20 people in the stands for matches? Because if you're not, then you're making yourself vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be some programs that will suffer. I hope it's not going to be tennis. But that's going to depend a lot on you as a coach. Is going to be one more responsibility and one more thing that I think coaches are going to have to be involved in order to make their programs relevant and successful. And your AD comes out to a match and goes like, okay, this is serving our athletic program. This is serving our community. This is a vital program that needs to be maintained.
Okay. Yeah. And Manny, before we get into our rapid fire, is there anything you're looking forward to, particularly in retirement? And will you stay involved in tennis in any way, you think?
I would like to stay involved somehow. I haven't put my finger on exactly what I want to do. I may be interested in doing some consulting work.
Mhm.
I feel like I could help uh, on the programs and with some advice, but I haven't really spent too much time. I think I'm going to take a good 6 months to
Mhm.
take the vacations I haven't taken for the last 42 years,
Yeah.
and then try to and get in the gym. I think that's like one of my things that I'd like to spend a little bit more time is just just getting a little fitter and just being able to spend a little bit more time on myself. Where right now I'm tired of my time being everybody else's time, and
Hmm.
so I need to find time for some fun stuff. And one of them is getting in the gym, maybe picking up golf, maybe picking up pickleball, maybe playing with some octogenarians, some good old clay court tennis, and just having a little fun.
Good. Well, good for you. Well, we wish you well, but hopefully you won't stray too far from tennis, and we will see you upon on occasion. But into our rapid fire round, who is your favorite college tennis player of all time that you did not coach at UGA?
Gosh, I can't really come up with somebody, but one player that I kind of just like wish I had was a player that played number 4 and number 3 for USC. Those years where they won 4 straight championships. I think for 2 or 3 years went undefeated in dual match play at the NCAA championships, and
Yeah.
he would play his best tennis during those matches. So it's not necessarily Stevie Johnson. I
No.
admired him, and if
Yeah.
you want, yeah. I don't think there's a more decorated college player than
Sure.
Stevie. But really, those years he had a guy down there at 4 and 3 that really just was just as important to that team. And so,
Right.
I have an affinity for players that operate removed from that number 1 or 2 spot that really
Hmm.
is valuable. I think that's where we've won a whole lot of our championship, and that was one player that I was jealous of, like not having.
Yeah, very good. What is maybe the best piece of advice you've ever received during your college coaching career?
I think I already kind of alluded to this one. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I think that to me is very it made a huge difference.
Yeah. Has there been a favorite drill you've done with your team through the years that you keep going back to and put them through?
I I you know what I'm doing a whole lot of drills that I did 45 years ago. But there isn't one drill that I would say that we do this religiously. Whether it's a serve and volley drill, approach pass drill, cross court down the line, a drill. The I think the most important drill to me is just make sure that you keep things fresh for your team. To be
Hmm.
honest with you.
Yeah. What is the most important trait in a recruit these days, do you believe?
Um, I think what I look for is grit, is tenacity. Is along with grit, I would probably say is the ability for kids to get along with or work in a group setting. So I look that's very important to me because we emphasize teamwork. It's not just about me in practice. It's about, can I make the guy across the net better that day? Can I provide some leadership? Can I have the right attitude? So, how a kid, I was so attracted to John Isner. He was number 10 in the nation as a junior. But I was so attracted to John because he was always surrounded by a group of friends. And all of these kids seemed to look up to him. They were attracted to his energy. They were attracted to his smile. He was always smiling. He was always providing this aura of like, he loved what he was doing. He loved spending time with people. He loved having fun with his friends. And, the tournament took care of itself. He was out there competing very, very hard. But I think that he was a great leader for us because he hated to lose, but also he was a great teammate. So being
Hmm.
a great teammate is one thing we've always looked for.
Okay. And what is
Big
the
trait.
most important tennis skill a college tennis player must possess now to succeed at the highest level of college tennis? Has that changed through the years? And it could be tangible or
Um,
untangible.
yeah, I think I've alluded just being able to deal with pressure.
Okay.
I think I would rank, listen, for me, it's about a big serve and a big forehand now. It used to be big serve and volley, but it's not the 70s anymore. So the game has changed a little bit.
Mhm.
And I would say now, how naturally, how can you, if you have a big serve and you have a big forehand, you can control play for the majority of the time, and you can build around those. But how you handle pressure, I think that is
Mhm.
just as important as any other skill you have. People don't really look for that, and I think that that's one of the things that I've always looked to when I go to Kalamazoo or I go to recruiting. How are kids dealing with a bad call? How are kids dealing with losing the first set? What's your percentage of winning when you lose the first set? I look for that.
Mhm.
How do you bounce back from adversity? How you handle tough moments, difficult moments, disappointing moments? I think that that's one of the things I look for.
Okay. You mentioned one book that has influenced your coaching career. Is there any other book you feel like has influenced the way you've done business over the last few decades?
Yeah, I've I was for the first 20, 25 years, I was the sports psychologist of our team. There was no
Sure.
department dealing with that
Yeah.
like we have now. But a book that changed my life, I think, as a actual senior in high school, was Psycho-Cybernetics
Oh yeah.
by Maxwell Maltz. So Psycho-Cybernetics was hugely important to my development.
Hmm.
But since then, there's two other books that are required reading within our program, and that's The Magic of Thinking Big and Master Key to Riches by Napoleon Hill. Those two books are gold.
Right. Thank you. And is there anything you've changed your mind on as it relates to college tennis or college athletics over the years? You know, rules, formats, tournaments, conference realignment, NIL. Is there something that you're like, oh, this is not good for the sport? And then once it was implemented, you're like, oh, yeah, I kind of like this.
Yeah. It's funny because when I was I think my junior year in college, we switched from deuce ad to no ad. We went and played no ad for 15 years.
Right.
And Coach McGill was one of the primary exponents of no ad. He knew Jimmy Van Allen. He thought it was exciting.
Hmm.
He thought, for the ordinary football fan, they could sit in the stands and follow 1, 2, 3, and then the next point is the game. So he was a very big proponent. And for myself, I felt like that benefited. That taught me discipline. But then you go out and you try to you're out there playing in the futures and challengers and past college, and you're back to DUSAD. Um, I was somewhat of a proponent. I was one of the leading proponents of going back to no ad. And I kind of pushed that a little bit, if not a lot. I don't know that I'm second guessing myself, but I wouldn't be opposed to maybe a one deuce.
Hmm.
That's just I'm just as I try to get creative. What you know the one thing that I was also for is I felt like doubles needed to be a little bit quicker so that we didn't lose our crowd. We were playing pro sets, and a good bit of our crowd would leave after a 1 hour and 15 minute or
Right.
one doubles match because they felt like that was it. I think with a set before singles, I think that we do a much better job of keeping our crowd from leaving. So
Mm.
that's been good. But at the same time, I also feel like doubles uh, is such an important point, and a lot of times I feel like we have the better doubles teams, and we're not winning the doubles point. And
Mhm.
when I least expect to win the doubles point, we're losing it. And vice versa. I'm not sure that that's great for the game. It's exciting, but when you have to win 4 singles, especially in postseason, that's a tough assignment, and then so the doubles becomes more important. And so, are we doing it justice? If the doubles was a little bit longer, I don't know, whether the 7 or so, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have the answer, but I do have the fear that it's a flip of doubles is a flip of a coin right now, in a closely contested dual match, and I'm not sure if that's the best outcome. I guess decisive doubles point, if that's good for the game or not. It's good in some ways, and maybe it's not in some other ways.
Yeah, no, one break, right, and you could be done. Just one bad game or look or whatever.
One let cord, you get broken.
Right. Okay, and then lastly, Manny, what is one lesson you hope your players have learned from you by the time they graduate?
Ooh. You're good enough. You're worth everything. I think that hopefully they've understood that they're loved, and they're that they have learned enough lessons to go forth and be successful.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a nice place to end, Manny. Thank you so much again for making time, and excited to get this out to our coaches, and appreciate all your service to college tennis through the years. And like I said, I hope you won't be too much of a stranger to college tennis and the ITA going forward.
I'll be around. Thank you.
Hey coaches, Lauren here from the ITA. I wanted to take a few seconds to remind you that we have applications open for 2 programs. The Coach Up Credential course is perfect for coaches at any level in any division. After running the course this past year, it's actually something I wish I was able to do, particularly after I had been doing the job for a long time. Sometimes I was running on autopilot, and I had experienced so many changes personally and professionally since the start of my career. I think having the chance to formally reevaluate my values and philosophy and really look at how I do things within my program would have refreshed the job for me. We're also launching a pilot program called Rising Coaches, which is a 2-week online program that assists college tennis players who are interested in pursuing a career in coaching college tennis. Eligible applicants are any former college tennis player who's exhausted their eligibility in spring 2024 or prior, or current student athletes who are entering their last year of eligibility in the 24-25 school year. If you have student athletes who want to pursue a career in our industry, please direct them to this program. More information on Coach Up and Rising Coaches can be found on the ITA website at wearecollegetennis.com.